Hi everyone, my name is Shelby Rouse and I teach third and fourth grade at Foster Heights Elementary in Bardstown, Kentucky. The tool I am using to make this video is Screencastify, and it is one of the tools I'll be talking about today. The tool I'm really going to focus on is AutoDraw, and I've got it pulled up here. If you're not familiar with AutoDraw, it is an amazing fun tool that your students will love if you've never used it. The Auto Draw Magical Pen is what I call it with my kids. Kind of knows what you're trying to draw or is trying to guess what you're drawing, because obviously it is difficult to use the computer mouse to draw nice put together images. So as you can see here, Auto Draw is guessing what it thinks I'm drawing. So we've got some trees, which is what I was going for. Got some teddy bears, some four-leaf clovers, some hands. So it wasn't really sure what I was drawing, but it made some good guesses. So here I can pick the tree drawing and I can copy and paste that. I can use it in whatever I want to use. I often have my kids use this when they're creating story summaries, and I ask them to come up with a picture to go along with each part of a fictional story summary, and they get really into it, as you can imagine. But what I'm going to talk about today is something that I have just recently started doing with my kids, and that is having them using AutoDraw to draw models in both math and science. I used this past week actually, and I had my kids show AutoDraw on their screen like you can see on my screen now, and I had them have Screencastify running on their Chromebooks so that I could hear them explain the model and show that they understood what the model represents. It was a good way for me to hear good vocabulary and all that good stuff. So my question for them this past week was we were studying sound. My question was for them to explain the difference between high-pitched sounds and low-pitched sounds, and to draw a wavelength model for each of those, and to use all of the vocabulary that we had talked about this past week to explain the difference. So they came up with, their high-pitch sound waves. Sorry, this is really awful. And then their lower pitch sound waves. And they, labeled the crests and the troughs. If you're a science person, you understand this. And they labeled the wavelengths and explained the frequency and all that good stuff. And it was just a really great way for me as a teacher to understand or to gauge how much they have comprehended, because here they are applying it. They're not only applying it, they're explaining it. They are going in depth with the vocabulary, and they're having fun with it. The level of engagement was incredible to see. I've got my Twitter pulled up here. My school is all about sharing what we're doing on Twitter. So here are some of my kids completing their videos using AutoDraw. This is a little guy who is typically not engaged whatsoever, and he was all about this. So I was really happy to see him get into the learning in that way. And you can see here, her model is very put together and polished, but they just had a lot of fun with it. And it was an exciting moment for me as their teacher to see them so engaged in the learning, because if I hadn't used AutoDraw or Screencastify to complete this activity, they would have probably just used paper pencil and explained using writing, which is great, and there's still a time and place for that. But this just shook up the learning a little bit and made it a little bit different. So as far as the UDL components, it's high level of engagement. Anytime you use either one of these tools, AutoDraw or Screencastify, your kids are going to be engaged. And as far as representation, they are presenting information in a variety of ways, and are able to communicate their understanding of content in a variety of ways. And it allows you as the teacher to differentiate. And like I said, this tool can be used from kindergarten to 12th grade. any level, there is a place for it. Even with your high school kids, I'm sure you can find a use for it. And Screencastify is one of those things that we can all use. So I love both of these tools. And the only other thing that I will say, since we're focusing on copyright issues and fair use policies, I've used Screencastify a lot with my kids, having them present Google Slides or Google Sites that they have created on various topics. And I always take those opportunities and require them to give credit to whichever site they found information on. So if they are doing a study on a certain habitat and they pull information about that habitat from a source, they need to give credit to that source. And it's also a good time for us to learn which sources are reliable, which sources aren't reliable. How can you tell? And it's always a good learning experience. And like I said, Screencastify can be used to present those projects and present those slideshows that they create, and they get really into that as well. So I hope you've learned something from me today, and I hope that maybe this inspires you to do something similar in your own classroom, because I promise your kids are going to love it. Thanks. Bye.